Did anyone happen to be outside this Friday night? If so, did you happen to look at the moon? You may have noticed that the moon seemed a lot brighter, a little bit bigger, and also it had a tint of orange. What you were experiencing was called the harvest moon. According to an article written by Joe Rao titled Shine On, the harvest moon is the full moon that occurs directly before the autumnal equinox. A full moon is when the moon is exactly 180 degrees opposite the sun. It makes them, on these days it seems that the moon stays in the sky a lot longer, but in reality it actually rises before the sun sets and it disappears from the sky a lot sooner. Also on these nights, the moon takes about 30 minutes to rise as opposed to 57 minutes that it usually takes. From an excerpt titled Sweet Harvest, Notes from the Farm, written by Tara Brockman, she explains how farmers use this harvest moon and able to lengthen their day and be able to harvest more crops. Back when we didn't have electricity and farmers were forced to stop working once the sun set, it limited the time that they could take to harvest all their crops. During this full moon, the moon gave enough light to enable these farmers to continue working. So this is why it's called the harvest moon. Another article written by Joe Rao titled Skylog talks about how researchers actually use the moon and the moon's phases to track the migration of birds. On this harvest moon, birds are able to migrate hundreds of miles to the Gulf of Mexico without stopping because the moon lights their path. They have nothing to stop them. They refer to this research as moon watching. According to September Nights Out, an article from Natural History, this harvest moon was on September 16th. Also this year we had a lunar eclipse on the same day. A lunar eclipse is when the moon is shadowed by the earth. So about 91% of the moon was immersed in the earth's shadow. So not only was the moon big and bright, but it also looked like it had a little bit of shadow on the top. Now I know most of you have probably put your summer clothes away and the nights are getting a lot colder, but summer is not officially over until the autumnal equinox. According to an article titled Angles and Eclipses by Bob Riddell, an equinox is when the sun crosses over the Earth's equator. Now on this day, it makes the day have equal parts light and equal parts night. Also, according to an article titled Origins of Constellations by Alexander Gerstein, this also marks the changes of the seasons. He also explains how you're able to find out this exact day. When the sun's horizon line is set, you are able to see the shadow. The shadow of the horizon line makes a direct line to that of the equator. Now, years back, ancient people actually not only used the moon and the sun to determine season patterns, but they also used the constellations. Not only were the constellations a spiritual comfort to most, they were also able to determine the calendar that they used. This was used by ancient hunters as well as farmers to determine the seasons and figure out when they were supposed to harvest crops, when they were supposed to plant them. It enabled hunters to determine the migration paths of different herds that they could hunt. That way they could move with the herds in order to continue providing food for their colonies. Now, not only were the constellations used to provide astrologists with zodiac signs, which we now, associate that with your date of birth, constellations were also used to determine the patterns of the seasons. The constellation that occurs over the autumnal equinox is the Libra constellation. When you look up in the sky, you will notice that the Libra constellation is a lot brighter and it's directly to the right of the moon. The symbol for the Libra constellation is actually a scale, and this represents balance. And as I told you, on the day of the autumnal equinox, it is a day of balance where you have equal parts daytime and equal parts nighttime. Now, according to September Nights Out, this autumnal equinox is September 22nd. After September 22nd, you will notice that the days will get a lot shorter and the nights a lot longer. Also, the days will get a lot colder, and this is because the sun is a lot further away from us. Now, this is only for the northern hemisphere. The southern hemisphere is doing the opposite. So as we're having our autumnal equinox, they're having their vernal equinox or also their spring equinox. Now, not only does the moon and stars look nice to look at night, but also, as I stated, it helped the farmers know when to plant their crops as well as harvest them. It provides birds with a migration path so that they could go to warmer months for the summer. And it also provides us with a calendar and a calendar of when our seasons change. So enjoy the last few days of your summer, because on Wednesday it is officially over and the first day of fall begins.